Hare
Hare
Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam. Sorry, I thought it was a Saturday actually, because I had a morning session also, so I thought it was just a Saturday only. Okay, so which verse are we doing now?
Hare Krishna ji.
Hare Krishna. Hmm,
36.
36. Okay. ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नाम्ने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Text 36. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Yatra Narayana Sakshad
Yatra Narayana Sakshat
Bhagavan Nyasinam Gati
Bhagavan Yashinam Gati
Stam Samstuyate Satkathasu
Samsyate Sat Kathashi
Mukta Sangay Punah Punah.
Mukta Sange Punah Punah.
Yes, so would someone like to read?
I read for you.
Okay, yes, please.
Thank you. Have a good day. Translation. The Supreme Lord Narayana is present among devotees who are engaged in hearing and chanting the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Narayana is the ultimate goal of sannyasis, those in the renounced order of life, and Narayana is worshipped through the Sankirtan movement by those who are liberated from material contamination. Indeed, they recite the holy name again and again. Purport. The Mayavadi sannyasis are missing the real presence of Narayana. This is because they falsely claim to be Narayana himself. According to the customary etiquette of Mayavadi sannyasis, they address one another as Narayana. To say that everyone is a temple of Narayana is correct, but to accept another human being as Narayana is great offense. The conception of Daridra Narayana, poor Narayana, an attempt to identify the poor with Narayana is also a great offense. Even to identify Narayana with demigod like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva is an offense. Yastu Narayana Devam Brahma Rudrayi Devta Samtu Veneva Viksheta Sa Pashnandi Bhaven Dhruvam. One who considers Lord Narayana on the level with great demigod like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva is immediately listed among non-believers. The fact is that the performing Sankirtan Yajna, one can immediately please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Narayana himself descends and immediately is present. In this age of Kali, Narayana is immediately present in the form of Lord Chaitanya. Concerning Lord Chaitanya, Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.32 state, Krishna Varnam Rishi Krishnam Sangopanastra Prashatam Yagnehi Sankirtana Prayer Yajantihi Sundeshaha. In the age of Kali, intelligent person perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of God who constantly sings the name of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapon, and confidential companions. After all, human life is meant for pleasing Narayana, and this can easily be done by performing Sankirtan Yajna. Whenever there is congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord Gaura Narayana, the Supreme Personality of God in his incarnation as Lord Chaitanya immediately appears in the worship by Sankirtan Yajna. In this verse, it is said that Narayana is Naishinam Gati, the ultimate goal of the sannyasis. The goal of those who have renounced the material world is the attainment of Narayana. A Vaishnava sannyasi therefore dedicates his life to serving Narayana. He does not falsely claim to be Narayana. Instead, he becomes Nirvaira, non-envious of other living entities. One who tries to become Narayana becomes envious of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the attempt to become Narayana constitutes the greatest offense. Actually, when one chants or discusses the transcendental activities of the Lord, he immediately becomes non-envious. In this material world, everyone is envious of everyone else, but by vibrating or discussing the holy name of the Lord, one become non-envious and devoid of material hankering. Because of our envy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we have become envious of all other living entities. When we are no longer envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there will be real peace, unity, and fraternity in human society. Without Narayana or Sankirtan Yajna, there cannot be peace in material world. Thank you, Babu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, when Srila Prabhupada was in Hawaii, one yogi came to meet him, Yogi Bhajan. He was a prominent Sikh guru of that time, and he was quite popular. So he came to meet Srila Prabhupada, and he said that he was organizing a cross-religious meet. All kinds of religionists were invited to that meeting. So Srila Prabhupada asked him, what's the purpose of this meeting? So he said that, Swamiji, this is for world peace. So Prabhupada said, yes, there will be world peace. You just declare that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and everything belongs to him, and there will be world peace. So this Yogi Bhajan said, okay, so, please join this meeting. We're going to, talk about world peace. He said, yes, you declare that Krishna is the Supreme Person and everything belongs to him, and I will, definitely participate. And so Yogi Bhajan wanted Srila Prabhupada to participate somehow or the other, because Srila Prabhupada was very popular. This was in the mid-70s. Srila Prabhupada was already quite famous. So after quite some time spending in trying to persuade Srila Prabhupada, Yogi Bhajan got frustrated and he left. So the disciples were watching all of this and they asked Prabhupada, what was this? What was the meaning of all this? So Srila Prabhupada said that, he's a Sikh. And in general, their philosophy is Mayavad. But still, they can offer protection to the devotees. So on the other hand, this kind of world peace that they are talking about is simply an illusion if they are not thinking of surrendering to Krishna. So at the end of the meeting, Srila Prabhupada still did not give any commitment whether he would be joining this Yogi Bhajan's meeting or not. So the point that Srila Prabhupada was emphasizing was not to Yogi Bhajan actually, but to his own disciples. That in this material world, all the so-called isms like humanism or religionism or protectionism, all this is just an illusion. Unless there is a clear vision of Krishna, everything is just an illusion. One may feel very happy being a religionist or a feminist or this or that, but that is all nonsense, because everything is just temporary. So all these isms are not going to bring happiness or peace to the human society. So here we are talking about the Mayavadi sannyasis missing the real presence of Narayan. So Mayavadis, in fact, there is some kind of a very famous Maharashtrian song also, Ami Narayana, Tumi Narayana, this kind of, which is that sect in Maharashtra. They love to sing these kind of songs. Of course, in India, most of the Hindu sects, so-called Hindu sects, are all just Mayavadis only. But the point here is that, eventually, the Mayavadi wants to become Narayan. Krishna says, Mameva Ansh Jiva Loke Jiva Bhut Sanatana. Yes, the living entity is a part and parcel of the Supreme, but living entity is not Supreme. Living entity is never the Supreme. It cannot be the Supreme. You may be a part of India, but you are not India itself. So you may be a part of, so for example, a wheel may be a part of a big aeroplane, but wheel cannot be called the aeroplane. So just like that, the living entity is a part and parcel of Supreme, but he's not Supreme himself. He cannot be Narayan. Narayan is transcendental. He's beyond all illusion. The living entity who is fallen in Maya, how can he be Narayan? That's simply illogical to think that if we overcome illusion, we become Narayan. As Srila Prabhupada comments that if you can overcome illusion and become Narayan, let us accept that as fact. Okay, theoretically, let us accept that as fact. But what kind of Supreme Narayan falls under illusion? And if he does, that means that illusion is superior to Narayan. So there's a logical fallacy. Then Narayan is no longer Supreme. Then illusion has to be the Supreme. Since you accept that illusion cannot be Supreme, you also have to accept that you cannot be Narayan. Krishna is saying, Maya Jakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam. This material nature is under my influence. Maya Adhyakshena Prakriti. So if this material nature is under the influence of Narayan, how can Narayan come under the influence of material nature? So that's a logical fallacy of Mayavad philosophy. So to think that the living entity can become Narayan is one of the great offenses one of the 10 offenses in chanting of the holy names of the Lord. So Yastu Narayanam Devam Brahma Rudradi Devate Samatve Naiva Viksheta Sapashandi Bhave Dhruvam. So anyone who considers actually not just the living entity, if one thinks even Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva to be equivalent to Narayan, immediately he is a fallen soul. So even Brahma and Shiva cannot be equivalent to Narayan. Narayan is supreme. He is completely transcendental. So in this age of Kali, Lord Narayan has himself descended as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, very interesting point here. A Vaishnava sannyasi dedicates his life to serving Narayan. He does not falsely claim to be Narayan. Very interesting points here. A Vaishnava sannyasi and dedication to Narayan. So, what is sannyas? In 17 chapters of Gita, Krishna is explaining the meaning of sannyas. And in the 18th chapter, he concludes it by saying that acting only on the platform of devotional service to the Supreme Lord, that is called sannyas. Everything else is just materialism. Everything else is ignorance. So acting 100% on the platform of Krishna consciousness, that constitutes sannyas. So whether one is a grahastha or a brahmachari or anything, if he is 100% acting on the platform of Krishna consciousness, he is to be considered a sannyasi. So Vaishnava sannyasi therefore dedicates his life to serving Narayana. Dedication to serving Narayana. That means completely serving Narayana with no other purpose of life. So when we are no longer envious of the Supreme Godhead, there will be real peace, unity, and fraternity in human society. So why is there collision? Why is there violence, or we can say lack of peace in the society? Why is there so much anxiety? Because I think I am the master. Aham mameti. I and mine. So when there is I and mine, then there are other living entities also with the same thought process. So naturally, there is bound to be collision. That's why families fight, neighbors fight, societies fight with each other, nations fight. Russia, Ukraine, China, America, India, Pakistan. Why are they fighting? Aham mameti, I and mine. I am Indian, this is my country. I am North Indian, I am South Indian. Aham mameti, my land. I am Tamil, I am Gujarati, I am Punjabi, I am, Kannada, I am Maharashtra. All this is aham mameti. Because I think I am this body and everything related to this body is mine, I become envious of other living entities. If this is mine, how can it be yours? So therefore, there is this kind of collision between the living entities. A sannyasi, on the other hand, gives up this misconception. Everything belongs to Krishna. So when one thinks that everything belongs to Krishna, then automatically, where is the question of ownership? And when there is no ownership, automatically, where is the question of clashing with others? So this aham goes away, mameti goes away. And therefore, such a person who is cleared of misconception is to be considered a sannyasi. But one can only be sannyasi if one is surrendering to Krishna. Because a Mayavadi may think that he is a sannyasi. He may have renounced the bodily sense gratification, but still he has not given up his false sense of ownership or false sense of identity. So therefore, actually, factually speaking, a Mayavadi cannot be sannyasi. Mayavadi is maybe liberated up to the platform of Brahman, but he is not liberated to Vaikuntha. So therefore, his renunciation is also false, because he's actually envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's envious of Narayan. So one who is rendering loving devotional service only is to be considered a devotee. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajtam priti purvakam. Krishna is not saying bhajatam mama. No, bhajatam priti purvakam. One who renders loving devotional service only he can be considered a devotee, and only he is eligible to receive the knowledge of the Supreme Lord, which is the real transcendental knowledge. Otherwise, one will transcend the material modes of nature, but in the absence of being promoted to Vaikuntha, he will fall down again as soon as desires are manifested in the heart. So therefore, Krishna is recommending a simple process. Man mana bhav mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. So man mana bhav mad bhakto, always think of me. So always think of Krishna in the mood of a servitor. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions or comments? Okay, we continue. Text 37. Yesham vicharatam padbhyam
Shisham Vichitam Pacham
तीर्थानाम पावनेच्छया
Keethanam
तीर्थानां पावनेच्छया
भीतस्य किं न रोचेत
It's a
भीतस्य किं न रोचेत
तावकानां समागमः
तावकानां समागमः.
May it prove?
Married.
Go to.
Go ahead, Prabhuji. Fine.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Dhanwad Pranam.
Okay.
Translation purport by Sri Prabhupada. Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Dear Lord, your personal associate, devotees, vendors all over the world to purify even the holy places of pilgrimage. Is not such activity pleasing to those who are actually afraid of material existence? Purport by Sri Prabhupada. There are two kinds of devotees. One is called Gosthandi and the other Bhajanandi. The word Bhajanandi refers to the devotees who does not move but remains in one place. Such a devotee is always engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. He chants the Mahamantra as taught by many acharyas, and sometimes goes out of our preaching work. The Gosthandi is one who desires to increase the number of devotees all over the world. He travels all over the world just to purify the world and the people residing in it. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised Prithvi Achi Yata Nagaradi Karma Sarvata Pracharam Aibe More Nama. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted his followers to move all over the world and preach in every town and village. In the Chaitanya Sampradayas, those who strictly follow these principles of Lord Chaitanya must travel over the world to preach the message of Lord Chaitanya, which is the same as preaching the word of Krishna. Bhagavad Gita said, and Srimad Bhagavatam. The more the devotees preach the principles of Krishna Katha, the more people throughout the world will benefit. Devotees like the great sage Narad, who travels all over to preach, are called Gosthandi. Narad Muni is always wandering throughout the universe just to create different types of devotees. Narad even made a hunter a devotee. He also made Dhruv Maharaj and Prahlad Maharaj devotees. Actually, all devotees are indebted to great sage Narad, for he has wandered both the heaven and the hell. A devotee Lord is not even afraid of hell. He goes to preach the glories of the Lord everywhere, even in hell, because there is no distinction between heaven and hell for a devotee. Narayana Praha Sarve Na Kusanche Bhivyanti Sav Gram Kripave Narkeve Api Tulyate Dashna. A pure devotee of Narayana is never afraid of going anywhere and everywhere. For him, heaven and hell are one and the same. Bhagavatam 6.17.28. Such devotees wandering all over the world deliver those who are actually afraid of this material existence. Such people are already disgusted with the material existence, being confused and frustrated by material enjoyment. And some people who are intelligent are interested in understanding the Supreme Lord. Both may take advantage of the pure devotee who wanders throughout the world. When a pure devotee goes to a place of pilgrimage, he desires to purify that holy place of pilgrimage. Many sinful men bathe in the holy water of the place of pilgrimage. They take their baths in the waters of the Ganges and Yamuna at places such as Prayag, Vrindavan, and Mathura. In this way, the sinful men are purified, but their sinful sections and reactions remain at the holy place of pilgrimage. When devotee comes to take this bath of those places of pilgrimage, the sinful reactions left behind the sinful man are neutralized by the devotees. Tirth kurvanti, tirtha sevanti, istarangade, gadav rataha. Bhagavatam 1.13.10. Because the devotee always carries the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart, wherever he goes, becomes a place of pilgrimage, a holy place for understanding Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is therefore the duty of everyone to associate with the pure devotee and thus attain freedom from material contamination. Everyone should take advantage of the wandering devotees whose only business is to deliver conditional souls from the clutches of Maya. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. So, dear Lord, by virtue of a moment's association with Lord Shiva, who is very dear to you and who is your most intimate friend, we were fortunate to attain you. You are the most expert physician capable of treating the incurable disease of material existence. On account of our great fortune, we have been able to take shelter at your lotus feet. Sadhu Sangha Sarva Shastra Koi, Lavamatra Sadhu Sangha Sarva Siddhi Hai. So this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying. Lavamatra Sadhu Sangha. Just a moment, please. Oh, sorry, I just read a little more extra. Okay, thank you. My dear Lord, your personal associates, devotees wander all over the world to purify even the holy places of pilgrimage. Is not such an activity pleasing to those who are actually afraid of material existence? So Goshthanandi and Bhajananandi, two categories of devotees. So actually that's, you see, this is a bit of a complex issue and one has to think very soberly about it. One has to think very deeply about it. What is Bhajananandi? What is Goshthanandi? One cannot be Goshthanandi without being a Bhajananandi. So Bhajananandi means someone who relishes bhajan. Bhajan Anandi, one who derives pleasure from bhajan, meditation on the Supreme. And Goshthanandi, one who enjoys preaching the glories of the Lord. Certainly you cannot preach the glories of the Lord if you do not relish those glories. And you cannot relish those glories unless you meditate on those. So you cannot be a Goshthanandi without being a Bhajananandi. However, as you can say, as a semantic difference, we can say that Goshthanandi is different from Bhajananandi. But this is all at the level of Paramhans, at the highest level. So, for example, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was traveling, he was just singing. And the Mayavadi sannyasis were, berating him. Why is he chanting? Why is he preaching? He should just sit and meditate on the scriptures. So what did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say? So he said that my spiritual master thought that I am a fool. He said, you are a fool. You should just sit and you should just You should just sit in one place. You should just go and chant. You are not fit to sit and study the Shastras. You are a fool. So Krishna is saying, so Mahaprabhu is actually indicating that Prakashanand Saraswati and his associates are fools. Therefore, he's saying that, you go and preach. So the point is that a Goshthanandi has to be well versed in the scriptures. Now, obviously, we know Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Nimai Pandit. He was well versed in the scriptures, but still he was preaching, indicating that sitting in one place and pretending to meditate on the Lord is actually just the symptom of a pashandi, a fake, or what we call a pretender. One who sits in one place and meditates only to attract the cheap attention of the foolish public. So even Bhakti Vinod Thakur says that, my dear mind, what kind of a pashandi you are. Your bhajan is just your bhajan, so your so-called bhajan is just a hypocrisy to attract the attention of the foolish people, the attraction of the masses, attention of the masses. So, however, it is also said in the scriptures, especially books written by Jiva Goswami, he wants the devotees not to take too many followers. So he says, actually, the Vedic scriptures, they forbid one from taking too many followers or disciples, because that will spoil one's devotional service. So what is the balance? On one hand, we are advised by the Lord to preach, Jare dekha tare kaha Krishna upadesh, or prithvi the ache yatra nagaradi gram sarvatra prachar haibe moranam. Mahaprabhu is saying. So who's going to do this preaching? So we only have to do it. So how do we understand this contradiction in the scriptural injunctions? That one should whether one should sit at one place and meditate, or whether he should travel abroad and preach. So actually we have to do both. Our meditation must be serious, it must be very private, and at the same time we should preach. So Srila Prabhupada once said, he said, Prithvite ache yatra nagaradi gram doesn't mean that the whole world will become devotee. What it means is that in every village and every town there would be a devotee. So not everyone will become devotee. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye. So everyone will not become devotee, but only 1 in 1,000. So a preacher of Krishna consciousness, he preaches to everyone. And though when he sees there are some people who are serious, then he gives more attention. But he should not be wasting his time in gathering cheap attention of the public. That, oh, now everyone is praising me, let me, show more of my capacities. Then that will be nonsense. So if a preacher takes on too many followers, he's sure to drown in Maya, because he'll take their reactions. Like Srila Prabhupada used to say, that if someone is worshipping you, you have to take their reaction. That is the position. So a preacher of Krishna consciousness has to be very cautious, because when you seriously preach this message, you are bound to suffer. This material energy will fight back. She will put you through so much suffering. So you have to be very cautious. So preaching has to be done in a very cautious manner. It should not be done to those who are not too serious. So Mahaprabhu when he would travel around the world, and what would he do? In general public, he would do Sankirtan, he would chant the holy names. With his own disciples, he would discuss the Bhagavatam. And with his intimate associates, he would discuss Krishna Leela. So that's a general etiquette. It's just like a general path laid down by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. So of course, one has to be Goshthanandi, but being Goshthanandi means that you must be a Bhajananandi also. So if you spend all your time in talking to general public, just gathering cheap attention, how will you get time to do meditation? And actually, if someone loves the adoration of the masses, then it is to be understood he is not a genuine sadhu, because he is still attached to the bodily platform, of this man and pratishtha, Karnaka Kamini and pratishtha. So such a person cannot be dear to the Lord. So one who is completely unattached to this sort of public fame, such a person only is qualified to preach the holy names. So by the mercy of Krishna, one may be a good orator, one may have excellent memory, but if one uses that to gain cheap followers, then Krishna will never give him his own love. One has to be very, very cautious in this path of preaching. So that's a precaution that all preachers of Krishna consciousness must keep in mind. It is done as a service to the Supreme Lord. It is not done to gain personal fame or glory. Whatever knowledge, whatever oratory skills we have, whatever attraction we are gaining from the public is meant for Krishna's service. It is given by Krishna for his own service, not for our glorification. So we must be very careful. So, on the other hand, if you meet a sadhu, then you must seek his association. So Srila Prabhupada is mentioning this in the 4th chapter, Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshina. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that one should not make absurd inquiries. One should not associate with the sadhu simply for the sake of associating. It must be with the serious purpose of advancing in Krishna consciousness. It is not for the sake of simply meeting some other person. It is actually sadhu sangha. We are meeting to know about Krishna. If we don't do that, then we will simply waste our time and the time of the sadhu. So many times people say, oh, I went to meet Maharaj. I met Maharaj. I spoke to him. Hare Krishna. Maharaj, please bless my child. Prabhuji, please bless my child. That's not something you ask sadhu. Sadhu's blessings can be very dangerous. By sadhu's blessing, your son may actually, lose all his education, his wealth, everything. And then he'll turn into a beggar. Then he'll be forced to accept the shelter of Krishna. So you see, like Krishna says, Mahaprabhu says, Ami Vidya ei murkh vishay kene diva. One may say, oh Lord, please bless my child. Well, the sadhu will bless the child. And then the child will become a devotee of Krishna. And then he'll lose all his material wealth and material opulence and his fame and everything. He'll be forced to take shelter of Krishna. So that no parent would like. So therefore, when you're meeting with sadhu, you must be very careful. You must have a very clear-cut agenda. So sadhus travel from place to place. Sadhus, one travels to holy places to meet sadhus. In the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj is saying the same thing. That one who goes to a holy place simply to take bath and not to associate with the saintly persons has an intelligence no better than that of a cow or a donkey. So we must take benefit of the association of a sadhu by learning about Krishna from such a personality. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna. I have a question. There was this in the purport about that how sinful people, they go to the holy places and then they take a bath, and then devotees needs to come there to neutralize those reactions. So is it that holy place will take the reactions of the sinful person, and then devotee needs to come? I just wanted to clear this.
Yes.
Okay.
So Ganga, when Ganges appears in this material world, she's reluctant to come out. She's reluctant. So why? Because she says that, as soon as I come here, all these sinful demons will come and they'll take bath in my waters.
Yeah.
And I'll be contaminated with their sins. Therefore, I cannot come out. So this, I think, comes in Gaur Ganodesh Deepika, that the Lord then blesses Ganga. He says, okay, no, it's all right. You come down to this earth, and in Kali Yuga, I will personally descend and purify you.
Okay, so the holy place itself doesn't purify itself. Devotee needs to purify it.
Yes, the holy place. See, why is it holy? Because the Lord performed his pastimes there. The vibration has remained. But now if demons come and they start doing their demonic activities, then the vibration will be spoiled. Of course, it will be covered over. So when devotees go there, they purify it. Yes, Prabhu, you have a question also?
Yeah, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, often this phrase I've heard, those who go to praying down only to take bath is equal to a cow or a dog.
No, yeah.
Right? But I don't know why cow and dog have been compared in this pair. The cow by any means is a virtuous thing. And dog, of course, we know what it is. So why
cow and an ass, actually.
As
It's cow and an ass. Gokhara. So eva gokhara.
Gokhara. Even Gokhara is okay. But why? Why the cow has become grouped with it?
So cow
Gokhara
also.
and the dog, I would have understood. Okay. But cow is a
So eva gokhara. So yes, one may have some pious thought process, but one still doesn't have any intelligence. So cow may be a very pious creature, but cow is not transcendental. Simply by worshipping cow, you're not going back to Godhead. So you worship cow to please Krishna. If someone just starts worshipping cows and neglects Krishna, then again one will be only considered a pious man.
Sure.
So one has to go to a holy place to render service to the devotees, to take association of devotees, to render service to them.
They understandable.
Yeah, so animals don't do that. Animal will simply go take bath in the river, eat something and come back. So go, the word go means actually all sorts of, this cattle.
Okay.
So buffalo, cow, everything is included in the word go.
Okay.
The word deer also is included in go.
That provides. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, Madhvendra Puri was actually more like a Bhajananandi only.
Yes. Actually,
So
all our
like,
acharyas have been like this.
because we don't like, I've not really heard that he used to go around preaching. He was more into doing his own bhajan, in a quiet, solitary place.
So actually, you see, like this is kind of a very unfortunate misunderstanding which is now existing. Srila Prabhupada was preaching very widely, but at the same time, Srila Prabhupada was always warning everyone to be very cautious while preaching. Preaching is not to be, it is, of course, we are broadcasting the glories of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Krishna, but it has to be done in a very cautious manner. Preaching is not something which we do as a general all India radio broadcast. Preaching has to be done very cautiously. When ISKCON had only 5,000 members, at that time itself, Srila Prabhupada said that we have expanded too much. Actually, not even 5,000. At that time, there were around 2,000 or 3,000 people only in ISKCON. This is in 1974. Prabhupada wrote a letter. He said, we have already expanded too much. So milk must be, it's time to boil the milk. So boiling the milk enhances its sweetness. If you simply go on adding water, then eventually nothing will remain. So Prabhupada was very insistent. With 3,000 people all over the world, Prabhupada was thinking that the movement is too big already. And those are the times when ISKCON was a very strict organization. So you see, so simply because we see 10,000 people coming to temples and all, we think that movement has expanded, but actually that's not the case. We are full of people who have millions of misconceptions, who have no understanding of what is Krishna consciousness. So even Srila Prabhupada was not preaching so, prodigiously in that sense, we would say. Srila Prabhupada was speaking in a very measured manner. If you see, Srila Prabhupada's lectures were on an average 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. That's it. Srila Prabhupada's kirtan was 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Sunday program altogether was 2 to 3 hours maximum. Actually, that is including feast and everything, 1 to 2 hours. So you see, Srila Prabhupada was also a Bhajananandi. He was spending most of his time in reading and translating, chanting, reading and translating, very little time in preaching. But because it has been so well documented, we think that Srila Prabhupada was constantly, chatting with people. That was not the case. Srila Prabhupada was very great. So preaching means it has to be done in a very selective manner. So if a preacher is too busy to chant, to read, to meditate, then he's not really preaching. He is just pandering to his ahankar and he will fall down. A preacher must have time for his sadhana, his own meditation, because we are not Paramhansas. We are not pure souls. So for us, we also have to be Bhajananandis. We also have to spend a lot of time in our personal meditation. So this Vaishnava process, actually, because we read Chaitanya Charitamrita, we read Prabhupada Lilamrita, so we think that, it's been like, it's like an ongoing festival all the time. That's not the case. So if you really want to understand preaching, maybe you should consider, talking to somebody from Shri Sampradaya or something. Then you'll understand the gravity of it. Like Shri Vaishnavas are very particular. They are very serious. Madhvas also. So they're not too many, very few, but very condensed. Very dense devotees. These devotees are very substantial. So there's no point in having 10,000 frivolous devotees who don't even understand Siddhant.
Okay, Prabhuji, got it. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Yes.
Hare Krishna, General Prabhuji.
Dandat Pranam. Yes.
Prabhuji, can we say means like this Bhajananandi and Goshtanandi, this is a state and it keeps fluctuating. Like in the beginning, a devotee may remain in a Bhajananandi stage, and later on he moved to Goshtanandi, to that preaching stage, and can we also say means like in the youth till the time body is active, he remain in the ideal situation should be remain in the Goshtanandi stage, and the later stage of life he may move to Bhajananandi stage. So and both the stages equally important.
Yeah, see. So what is Goshti? Goshtyanandi means Goshti, means to talk.
Yeah.
So what's the point in talking to those who are not interested? So Goshtyanandi also means very deep discussions. So like, for example, we hear so many conversations of Srila Prabhupada. But if you hear the conversations Srila Prabhupada had with devotees like Pradyumna Prabhu or Akshobhya Prabhu or what was his name? Badarayan Prabhu. So then you will see that these discussions were not, jolly discussions about the policies of America or general world situation. These discussions are very deep, related to book distribution, related to preaching, related to Shastra Siddhant. So actually a vast majority of Srila Prabhupada's discussions are very deep discussions. That is Goshti. That is only possible when one has meditated. So actually Goshti is a big risk that we take. This Goshti is not something like fun and games. It's actually a big risk, because when we are talking, so many times people have contaminated consciousness. And at that time, though we are fighting for Krishna, there's every risk that we can also become contaminated by the other person. So therefore, for a Bhajananandi, this is always an austerity to talk to people, especially when they are not advanced devotees.
Yeah, means Goshtanandi, I think we were wrongly related means always traveling. It is mostly means most of the time talking means it's preaching, and not necessarily it is always related to traveling. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Muted. Got muted.
Krishna, no, actually this aeroplane mode got activated somehow. I think there's some button here. Sorry. Yes, Prabhu. Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Can you please repeat your sentence?
Goshtanandi, we most of the time we relate it with traveling for preaching. But more than traveling, it is talking. Means preaching is mostly means talking about Krishna Katha and spreading the message. It is not mostly traveling. It is mostly talking and preaching. It can be without traveling also.
Yes, yes, definitely. So the whole objective is to preach to different people, not to just travel for the sake of traveling.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Yes, Anandam Prabhu, you have a question also?
Not exactly question, but exactly why these devotees who are preachers are traveling. Okay, they don't travel for the sake of traveling, or they like, or their body permits traveling. Even if their body doesn't permit, also they take the austerity, because according to they follow the scriptural rule that a preacher doesn't stay at one place for a long time, because that can cause an attachment also. So he may get attached to the adoration, he may get attached to the love of the people. And so as a sannyasi, previously only the sadhus or the preachers or the renunciates used to be only the preachers. Of course, with the in our sampradaya, it is everyone is empowered to preach, as long as we are transferring the same pure message, and we are following the principles.
Hmm.
So, as you rightly said, Prabhuji, one cannot be a Ghostanandi without a Bhajananandi, because then what will he speak? That is the question. If he is not Bhajananandi, if he is not strong in his sadhana, if he is not strongly, deeply rooted, actually he doesn't know what to speak. So he will speak here and there. He will hear something here today, he will hear something there today, tomorrow, and then if he doesn't have sufficient content, then he will borrow some content, whichever will be lucrative for the ears of the audience, he will speak. So actually, the first principle of speaking is a devotee, a preacher devotee is preaching for the pleasure of the Lord, and then the pleasure of the devotees. Again, it is the pleasure of the devotees, not the pleasure of the people.
Yeah.
So nowadays that is being misunderstood, and we are trying to speak many things out of our sampradaya, just because it attracts people and masses. And slowly and slowly, we are thinking that this is preaching.
So that is not Siddhant.
We
So,
are
for
borrowing
example,
many things outside sampradaya. Outside sampradaya, there may be some things which are bona fide and some things which may not be bona fide. And then we imbibe those things, and then we start preaching that, and whatever is there given in the sampradaya, we are slowly forgetting that. That's because we are not sufficiently reading, discussing among our own selves, and therefore we don't have sufficient things to speak, no points to speak, so we speak whatever pleases the audience.
see, we have to speak because we know something which is beneficial for others. We don't have to speak simply because we want to attract others. We are not speaking for the pleasure of others. We are speaking for the pleasure of Krishna and the acharyas, so that it may purify the hearts of others. But if we speak simply to give a lecture so that people will say how intelligent this person is, he's speaking so nicely, or if we'll, or by that way we'll earn some money, we'll get some donations, then we are in the wrong place. Then we'll become totally contaminated with their sinful reactions. When a sadhu does madhukari, he takes up the reactions of the yajamans. When a sadhu takes donation from someone, he's taking the karma. He's literally taking the karma. So there is a story actually which comes. I don't know how bona fide this story is or where the source was. I heard it like 25 years ago. So in the times of the Goswamis, once there was a feast in the temple of Madan Mohanji. And all the sadhus went there to take that feast. So after they took the feast, they felt very uneasy. They felt very much agitated. So they asked Sanatan Goswami, and then it turned out that the donation for the feast was given by a prostitute. That feast had been donated by a prostitute. So when the sadhus ate that feast, their minds were agitated because they took the karma of the prostitute. So as a matter of principle, Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji never used to accept the feast from any rich person in Navadvip. He would never accept. So you can imagine that is like maybe 150 years ago. So what to speak of now? Now people are absolute demons.
So that puts us into a very precarious situation, Prabhuji, because nowadays, even in ISKCON, we are accepting donations from any source. We are not verifying it, because we feel that a person is giving by a genuine desire to serve. So this everything will become purified. So how do we protect ourselves, our consciousness?
No, it's very simple actually. Use everything in service of Krishna. Simple. Don't use anything for yourself. Just give everything to Krishna. Nothing should be used for yourself. You can take donation from anyone. You can take it from Ravana and Kans also, no problem. But use it only in service of Krishna. If you use even a penny for yourself, you will be contaminated, you will fall down. Nothing should be used for one's own service. That's why it's best to just earn oneself and use it in the service of Krishna and reach. So don't waste too much time in this material world, the affairs of this material world. It's a dangerous place. Okay, so any other questions or comments? Okay, then we stop here today. Once again, my apologies for being late. I was under the impression that it's a Saturday. So once again, my apologies. So thank you very much, everyone. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Hare